Hello, welcome to Everybody Matters, our Family and Friends edition. I'm Jill Catherine, the host of our chat, and very happy to be here today. We do our Family and Friends chat once a month, and usually it's on the second Wednesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Sometimes that can change, but if you'd like to get a link to that chat, you can email us at everybodymattersgroup@gmail.com. So every month we take this time as an opportunity to provide you with some insight and some information about those who are in recovery, those who struggle with this disease. And I know that you have to get to this place, there's you're a family member of a friend of someone who is struggling with an eating disorder, disordered eating, or a form of body dissatisfaction. And the truth of that recovery process is, yes, it's the individual that needs to recover. And it's their journey, it's their responsibility. It is what's happening within themselves that they have to find their way through with treatment, with support. And even though it's that individual's journey, it certainly affects so many people around them. This disease doesn't live in a vacuum. It deeply impacts family members and friends. And it's a two-way street. And so how much that impacts family and friends like yourself, you also have a real ability to impact their recovery. And that can feel like a positive thing, or that can feel like an uncomfortable thing. But our hope here every month, that when we have an opportunity to chat with you all, is to give you these insights so you can find your truth, and the truth that's for your family and for your loved one. Each one of them has their own story. You have your own story, own situations, your own criteria. So whatever I speak to, I just want to always acknowledge that I do my best to speak as broad as we can of these different frames of insights, and to hope that you can find yourself, how you fit into that picture, and how that frame, how your family situation, your friend situation fits into that picture, what it looks like for you. And so I just encourage you to take what's applicable here from this chat, and try to apply it to your situation. So I'm just, excuse me for a moment, I was just seeing that, checking to see if we're making sure that everyone had the link here, and just managing a little technical moment. Okay, and just make sure that's out. Okay, good. Okay, so couple of things. So as always, take a look at the past videos that we've done that have, depending on where you're at in this journey, people tune into this video from all different stages. You could be early on with your level in recovery that are really in the woes of the disease. You could be coming in at a different space where they've been getting some treatment for a while. They're in a different stage in the disease and recovery. And so we have a number of videos already done on our YouTube page that speak to the vital importance of a treatment team, what that looks like, how to go about getting it set up, eating disorder 101 types of videos. Where we are today is to really take you each month through a different frame to how to support your loved one. And one of the ways I like to do that is every week we do a live chat for those who are in recovery. And it's a private chat, and they're at all different stages too. But I like to sort of bring you into those conversations and give you some insight into what are the things that we're working through. Given their stages of eating disorder recovery, right? stages of nutritional aspects of recovery for the body and the brain, stages of psychological aspects, stages of connected to emotional aspects, right? And then how this all sort of plays a role into what our life is today. So much of what we get to through our recovery journey is really coming to a place of life skill. And so regardless of where your loved one is with this eating disorder, the thread in the pipeline is always connected to life skill. That this disease has become a way of coping, it's become a way of safety, and it moves from a disorder to disease because it greatly impacts our brain and becomes a brain disease. That's really not understood by those of us who aren't in that brain. It doesn't make sense, and that's the disease component. But as we work through that, the thread that underlines all this is life skill, is being able to manage emotion, to be able to not just manage, but being able to move through emotion and understanding how that plays a role. Being able to manage, how we're feeling on the inside to what's happening on the outside in the world. Being able to manage what's happening on the outside of the world and how that's affecting us inside. It's all about how we're able to interact with life. And as we all know, regardless if you're eating disorder or not, life is a very complicated experience. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of dynamics that are things that feel really good in life. There's things that don't. And no matter what, we can't escape them. And so such a part of this support system for you, for your loved one who's struggling, is really being that network and support around the life skill. Because your job you're not their therapist or their nutritionist or their psychologist or psychiatrist. Your component here is they're someone they love and someone they trust, hopefully. And so in that safety net, is really where you can walk into being in a space of support around the components of negotiating and interacting with life. And each month I emphasize that because I can't emphasize enough. And that's really what we have to continue to get to in long term when we're really recovering and healing from this disease. Is it's all about the relationship with life, and it's about having to reprogram and rewire ourselves from how we think about our bodies, how we think about nutrition, how we think what healthiness is, what we think about success, how we define beauty, all these different components. And so one of the things that we have chatted about, that I wanted to bring to your attention is we brought in this acronym that is can be used in addiction recovery programs called HALT, HALT. And it's literally the acronym that says HALT, so stop, right? And stop to take a look at 4 things. H, am I hungry? A, am I angry? L, am I lonely? T, am I tired? It's that acronym that asks you to halt, to stop, and ask yourself those 4 questions. Because when we're struggling with this disease, we're impulsive, right? We're responding to these immediate triggers that are happening. We're being triggered. And it can activate this disease. And we talked about how this acronym of HALT, of asking ourselves these 4 questions, am I hungry? So much of the time, right? That's what's happening to us, underfeeding. It's affecting our brain. It's affecting our brain, so our thoughts are spinning out. We're not able to feel a sense of groundedness, right? That's a tricky thing depending on what stage we're at with the eating disorder. But that's something to, think about when you're supporting your loved one. Is people can forget to eat and forget because of other psychological things going on, emotional things happening too. So, am I hungry? 1, 2, am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? So much of the time, if you see your loved one sort of acting out, being triggered, being symptomatic, angry, lonely, tired, right? Those could be three really, on point emotions that could be happening or feelings that could be happening right then and there. A lot of times we have no clue how to deal with our anger. We've internalized that anger and created self-harm. Are we lonely? Loneliness is such a big part of this disease. You feel like no one understands, and it's difficult to connect with people. You feel very isolated and tired. Tired is a major component. Even when we're well bodied in mind and soul, if we're feeling tired, all of us can feel really off in our sense of self. So one of the things that we discussed in this last month with our weekly group is how to, use that acronym for ourselves to take a step back and to halt. And I just want to, two things. I want to bring that to your attention. One is, for those of you, right, who are supporting a loved one, this can be a very exhausting experience too. It can push your limits big time, and it's impossible for it to not. And there's nothing wrong with you if it's pushing your limits. It's a very difficult disease at certain points to be around. So I offer you this acronym to just, number one, use for yourself. When you find yourself really being pushed to your limits with your loved one, is to walk through that process for yourself. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? And I'm tired. And we've done a chat about how important it is for you to get your own support, big time. Your own counselor that you can talk to, because this is going to bring up so much within yourself and within your family units and dynamics. So you can walk yourself through that whole self-care to sort of take a step back and ask yourself what's really going on here. When you're really being triggered by them, what's going on? And two, I wanted to bring it to your attention because a pretty simple way for you to be of support, your loved one, is just to check in with them in those ways. Invite a conversation if they're feeling lonely, if they're feeling tired. Is there something that's making they're angry that they want to talk about? And as I started to say this, I know your role isn't their counselor, right? But as a loved one, we also have these conversations with our loved ones, these people that we trust, that we can really share what's going on in our heart. So that's an opportunity for you to initiate that conversation, to check in with them, to help them check in with themselves. So one of the biggest things that's difficult for those of us who have struggled with this disease or are struggling is how we can connect to our truth, our voice, the sense of what is true for us. For whatever reason your loved one has come to this point, there's going to be some part of their path where they haven't been able to feel like they can connect with what is true inside of them, and that it's safe for them to do that. Is to connect with what is true inside of them. And so what often happens, we dissociate, we get out of our body, right? We get out of our body. We don't want to feel, because our truth lives down deep inside of us here. And there's too much there. We don't feel safe to go there. And so one of the things that's really important in the recovery process is learning how to connect with your truth, of what your truth is deep down inside, what your truth is in terms of what you want to study, or what you want to do, or who you want to hang out with, or where you want to live, or what you want your life to be. Our own truth. There's so much noise and pressure and influences in our world today on all people, young people, people of all ages. There's so much influence out there to sort of point us in all these different directions. And in some ways, we have a lot of variety, we have a lot of opportunity. And that also can become really overwhelming, that we don't even know which way we want to go. And in the aspect of recovery, it is necessary for us to get in touch with some sense of truth that lives inside of us. Whatever truth that is that lives inside your loved one. And so here's an opportunity where you can take a look at, is there something you can reflect on what have you seen, or what has your loved one, have you seen them pull away from things that are true to them? Hold back because they're afraid of failure. Is there an opportunity for you to then initiate a conversation that talks about how you get in touch with what's true for you, how you were able to listen to what your path was? And maybe you haven't, or maybe you have, but what's necessary for recovery is your loved one has to have that, be able to start to exercise that life skill of what is it that's true inside of me. Because the disconnect from what's happening inside here and how they're showing up in the world is what's creating this gap that's creating a lot of pain and suffering too. And so something we're constantly nurturing in our recovery conversations is how to get in touch with what's true inside of us right here, right now, today. So I encourage you is that, is to have each, I talk about this with you each month. It's about it's digging deeper, really getting deeper into the heart and soul of things. And I know that's difficult to do depending on the age of your loved one and their stage of life. But regardless of what that is, we can still, there's a lot of layers on things that we talk about. We think the issue is right up on the surface, but it's much more below. And whatever you can do to sort of help get and to support them from that deeper place, from that place of truth and calling and what they're scared of, and understanding those components, bringing conversation to that is so important. And even though your role as a support one, it's not counseling, but it comes back to connection. It's that we want to feel connected. We want to mostly feel connected to ourselves, but we certainly aren't equipped with the skills on how to do that when we're in this disease. But our recovery processes, it's going to require us to feel a sense of connection to ourselves. And as we start to go through that, feeling a sense of connection with others, with our family and friends who can be part of that conversation, is huge, is critical, really helps in that HALT acronym of feeling lonely, right? And feeling isolated. So, digging down to the truth of things, the basic, simple truth of what's true for your loved one, what's really true in their heart. And even if it doesn't, for you, it might not make sense for them. Such a big part of the recovery process I went to, I found myself guided into, I started exploring all these different aspects. I was having certain travels and adventures, and that was giving me different experiences in life and then exposing me to different, art forms. And I found myself interested in different forms of movement and rhythm that made no sense to how I was raised, or sort of the family dynamic I came into, or the community I was raised in. It was very different. I wasn't exposed to much. And so I became exposed to different things during my recovery that really felt natural, felt good to me. They felt life-giving. And how important that could be when you see your loved one sort of connecting with what's true to them If it doesn't speak like it's true to you, it's not supposed to be. And your willingness to hold a space that lets them explore what is their truth can make a significant difference in their recovery time and process, because it's much more difficult when you're in this recovery and you're trying to find this truth for you. It's much more difficult when the ones around you don't get it and really kind of, don't encourage it. They just sort of dismiss it. It makes you feel more lonely and more isolated. So the value that and the opportunity you have to just be in a space of holding support and love as they start to discover what their truth is, and that grows and changes, is so incredibly valuable that you can't really even give it words. The other thing that's been really important for us to talk about is, about connecting to our truth and about letting ourselves really be seen. So much of this disorder, there's a lot of different reasons why we all come to it. Your family story is unique. One theme that's part of it is we don't want to really let our true selves be seen. We're scared. We're hiding. We are so afraid of something, of being hurt, of being criticized, of using our voice and that not being enough. We're afraid of being seen. And if we look at our world today, there's so many of us we don't have the role models, right? Are people who are really allowing them to be seen. So many of us put on masks every day and sort of play a part. And yeah, life requires that sometimes, right? But what's essential in recovery is the willingness to let the guard come down, to be seen. And that is what helps us to connect with what our truth is. The willingness to let ourselves be seen. The part of us that doesn't feel perfect and isn't always going to get it right, and the part of us that never feels enough, the part of us that's scared. And so, as a loved one of someone who's suffering with this, I really encourage you to think about for yourself what it takes for you to let yourself be seen, the truth of you, how you can hold that space for your loved one, how you can nurture conversations and connection and experiences that allow them to just be seen, and that be okay for them to be seen as whoever they are, not have to put on a whole image of being something else. Because that disconnect of what's happening on the inside to what we're doing on the outside fuels the disease, fuels the disorder. What we want to do as family and friends is we want to do our best, right, as loved ones, to be a support where what we're nurturing and fueling is a space that they don't have to be an image of anything. They just get to be who they are. Their true self, their self that might be really sensitive, their self that might not, if they're going through adolescence, they could be really irritable, uncomfortable, confused, trying to find their way. But if the message we can always bring them back to nurturing a place for them to find their way, not the way of the friend or not the way of what they're supposed to do, but what their way is. These are all essential elements of, self-development and life skill approach that's going to, lay that foundation for your loved one to move through their recovery. So just to recap, we talked about that acronym of HALT, of am I hungry, am I tired, am I hungry, am I angry, am I lonely, am I tired? Now it's something we can use for ourselves who support our loved one who's struggling with this, because we will be triggered and challenged and pushed to our limits. So we want to make sure we take care of us. We can check in with ourselves. Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Am I hungry? And it's also something that, we of those who are in recovery can ask ourselves those questions. And it's something you could be mindful of. Are they angry right now? Are they lonely right now? Are they feeling tired? These are really critical components. The next thing is learning to connect with our truth. How that's such an important part for us. How do we connect with what is true for us? And so I invite you to just bring that into your awareness, and how that then influences how you interact with your loved one. How you can help them to connect to their truth of discovering who they really are. Which leads us into the third and last is, it's necessary for us to let ourselves be seen. To no longer try to live beyond this mask or this image of what we're supposed to be. But to let ourselves, or our real self, be seen, all imperfect and all. And taking a look at, are you able to do that for yourself? And how you can then invite them and teach them and mentor them and love them to do the same for themselves. To let themselves be seen. Not an image of them, but their real self. The highs and lows. So, this isn't for the faint of heart. That's sure. It's a very challenging process. It pushes all of us in difficult ways. But if we can just keep coming back to right here, right now, take things one day at a time, one moment at a time. Because it's in these one moments, one day, built up over time, is how recovery happens. And through recovery, there can become an incredible discovery of who your loved one is that they're going to uncover. That's going to be beyond what the world tells them to do, but what they tell them to do. And that's what we want to encourage you to nurture, is them to find that inner voice, their inner truth, to let themselves be seen. It happens moment by moment, day by day. So I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for showing up and doing whatever you can to learn about what this is like. And we'll see you next month. Thanks.